everyone. This is your host, Alex Balgood, and today we have Laura Powers. She's an entertainer, celebrity, psychic, actress, model, host, singer, writer, and speaker. She's also the host of Healing Powers podcast, which is one of my favorite podcasts. So if you haven't listened, please go check it out. She's just super amazing. And she's been featured on several television networks such as NBC, ABC, Fox, and a bunch of other ones. So thank you, Laura, for being here today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So great to connect with you.
Thank you. And today we're going to be talking about intuition. I know we all heard about it. We kind of like know what it is, but let's start with tell us a little bit about yourself and what do you know about intuition?
Yeah, so ever since I was little, I have seen and sensed ghosts. So that is really how I knew that I was different and not like everybody else. I saw not just ghosts, but other non-physical things, energy. And I was really confused about it, to be honest. Like I could tell that other people couldn't see what I did. And I remember asking my mom when I was little, I think I was maybe 7 years old, if she saw things, and I knew based on her response that she didn't know what I was talking about. So I was like, probably best not to talk about this. I did think that maybe I was crazy. And so I just proceeded to just try to, not pay too much attention to it, just try not to get noticed for these things. But it was really confusing for me. And I couldn't always tell what was a spirit or something in the spiritual realm versus in the physical realm. So that caused me, some challenges. I would do things like call the cops on a ghost because I didn't realize that I thought there was an intruder in the house. I didn't realize they weren't a live person.
Yeah.
So it was just a challenge, for me growing up. I was also very creative at that time. And now that I know what I know, I realize that a lot of people who are very creative are also very psychic, whether or not they realize it. So I knew I was different. I just didn't really understand it. And as I got older, my abilities got stronger and stronger. So, adolescence and then into adulthood. And I had some pretty intense experiences, and a really life-changing moment happened for me when a family friend described a ghost that I'd seen but never told anyone about. So I knew at that point, like, okay, I'm not crazy if like he's seen a ghost that I've seen and I didn't tell him, so he can't see a hallucination of mine because then it's not a hallucination, so it must be real. But I was still pretty freaked out, and it was a different time in terms of the internet, so I didn't really know what to do about it. I didn't have any teachers in my life at the time, so I did the only thing that I really knew how to do, which is to try to block it out. And fast forward many years, and I was fairly successful in the sense that I stopped seeing and sensing some of these things, but I also was basically kind of flying blind. I was not paying attention to not only my psychic abilities, but also my intuition, and they're very connected. So fast forward many years, and I was just in a really bad place in my life, and I was physically ill. I was unemployed. I was in a bad marriage. I had a lot of, health issues. I was on sleeping pills. Just really struggling. So I went to a psychic to try to figure out what the heck to do with my life. And she explained to me that when I blocked out my abilities, I blocked out my intuition, and encouraged me to open back up. She encouraged me to connect with and talk with angels. So I started to do those things, and my life changed very quickly and very dramatically. And a lot of my health issues shifted and what either greatly improved or completely went away when I started paying attention to my intuition, taking classes, and just started living intuitively. So I'm really passionate about it because I've seen what's changed in my life. So I went from literally overweight, physically ill, in a bad marriage, unemployed, no money, to now I have this amazing lifestyle, a successful business. I'm healthy. I create my own hours. I basically just do what I want to when I want to. And it's been really incredible. And I love also teaching others and helping them to tap in. So intuition is basically our inner compass. It's our inner navigation system. It's there to help people navigate, to figure out how to live their best life. So in essence, it's something for all of us, but a lot of people don't know anything about it. And because of that, they end up struggling. When you're not listening to yourself, then you create struggle in your life because, you can do all the things that you're kind of supposed to do. So in my case, I had the fancy job, I had the advanced degree, I had the husband, I had the house, I had all the things that you're supposed to do to have like a good life. And my life was terrible. So it's really important that we focus on like, what is it that's for us personally versus like kind of what are the quote unquote good things. And, you know, when we focus on like what is for us specifically, that's when everything turns out well. And when we don't, that's when we often have struggles.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll just say that that intuition, it's something that everybody calls it as like, oh, I have that gut feeling, right?
Yes, absolutely. Most people are familiar with that idea of like a gut feeling, and
Right.
there are several parts of the body that are associated with intuition and also psychic abilities. One is the gut. One is the brain. So anyone who does research into health usually has heard of the gut-brain connection. So what's going on with the gut is also happening with the brain.
Right.
There's a lot of neurons in both the brain and the gut, and then also the heart. You know, these are all three like very important parts of our bodies in terms of health, as well as also our intuition and just the feeling sense that we have. So it's really important, I think, when we're looking at intuition to understand that there's this really strong interplay between our physical health and then feeling connected and be able to tap into our intuition.
Yeah, for sure. One thing that I noticed with my intuition that I now know, it's that it does shows up physically and how like I feel. And I never
Yes.
really noticed, I guess, you know, we're so busy with life that we're just going, and really never pay attention to how we feel when we do certain things. And it was pretty cool. I was reading this article. They were trying to prove that intuition is actually a real thing. And they had a bunch of people, and I guess they were the research was like with two decks of cards. One was for them. I don't know if you heard about this study, but pretty
I don't
much,
know if I've heard about this particular one. So yeah, I'd love to learn more.
yeah, this one was pretty much, there was two decks, and each participant was picking from either one or the other one, and one of them was for them to lose every time, and the other one was for them to win every time. So the more they keep going on this game, the participants start getting better at it, and they got this gut feeling that one deck was better for them. And so anyways, they went on to find out that yes, the participants that went with their gut, they were the winners mostly. And so but anyways, it was really cool to put those two things together, that it's not only like, oh, maybe like a little voice in our head or whatever you want to see it, but it's actually manifests us physically. Sometimes we feel, I don't know, butterflies. Sometimes we feel like, oh, you know, danger, or sometimes like, oh, I'm feeling lucky, I might win this time. And I think those are like really great part of our intuition on how we can see it or describe it. I know you do a lot of business, and you have a lot of clients, and what would you tell them or guide them to use their intuition in business?
Yeah, I think that in a way, there's nothing more spiritual than money in business. All our patterns show up there. So it's funny because a lot of people think of these things as very separate. And I'm like, no, a lot of my clients are, I would say, millionaires, billionaires, or aspiring to be either of those.
Yeah.
And I think that there's no reason for us not to use our intuition in any area of our life that we want to shift and improve, or to have, you know, the best experience that we can. And I think there's more and more being learned about this, you know, scientifically. So there's an institute called the Institute for Noetic Sciences. This is in the Bay Area, and they specifically study exactly this kind of thing. So it makes me laugh because have you ever seen the movie Ghostbusters?
Yeah.
So, you know, they're doing these like kind of pretty wretched experiments where if you guess the right thing, you don't get zapped. And if you
Right.
the wrong, then you get electric shock.
Oh my gosh.
More like, you know, they do experiments, but that are, you know, legitimate. Like that one was definitely kind of staged. And so it's really cool for me to see that there's more and more scientific studies that are demonstrating like what you're talking about, that there is a scientific basis for this. And I do think some people are more naturally tapped in without practice. And then there's a lot of people who are extremely psychic, but they've just never taken classes. So I think anything, how good would we be if we never had a teacher or never tried and practiced something, you know, maybe not that good. So I believe that everyone can benefit from taking classes like this. So I teach psychic training classes. My 6-month psychic training program launches soon. And I do these kind of one-off classes, and I have a bunch of books, because I think if you learn how to navigate for yourself, it's a total game changer. And basically when I was not paying attention to stuff was when I really struggled. And then as soon as I learned to pay attention to the stuff, my life just got so much better. So everyone has this. I think it's like almost any kind of ability, there's a range of natural ability. So not everyone's going to be like a Mozart or an Olympic athlete, but you know, everyone has something, right? We all have some that we can tap into this. So I think it's really cool that it's being studied. And I also think we're moving into a time where more and more people are starting to explore this, especially after COVID. You know, a lot of things came crashing down, and I think people are starting to understand, like, wow, there can be some benefits to approaching life in a different way and not using pure analysis. Analysis has its place, don't get me wrong, but just not only that.
Yeah, for sure. And the same way we talk about like business and intuition, I think also intuition and what we eat, right? Like our health. We use our intuition for like how we're feeling, and if something doesn't resonate with you, whether it's your physician, whether it's the medicine you're taking, or even the food that you're taking. Sometimes we, you know, maybe you might think like, oh, I'm eating well, fruits and vegetables, but I gotta say, funny story about myself. I was sick from my stomach for a long time, and I kept going to internists and like all these other physicians, and my acupuncturist and my I mean, everything. I tried everything.
Right.
And then one day, it was weird. One day I was eating avocado, because usually avocado and banana were like part of my daily diet, because I just love it. And I mean, avocado, it's like really good for you, right? It has omegas, and banana is really good for potassium and all these amazing, amazing things. And I eat organic. So one day I was like, there has to be something. And so I was like, well, I mean, I've done the whole elimination diet. I've done, you know, from being vegetarian to eat raw to eat all these different diets. But this one day I'm like, I mean, I love banana and avocado, but I think there's something in these two things. Like, I think there's something. And so that day I called my acupuncturist and I was like, look, I think maybe we should look into the avocado and the banana thing. And he was like, well, you know, but you don't get any really reaction. You don't get like a rash or anything like that. So he actually made me come to the office, and he did this thing called muscle testing, which is like very connected to intuition, where for whoever that doesn't know what muscle testing is, pretty much your physician will grab your arm and kind of like ask you a couple questions, and weirdly your body says the truth.
You become weak for something that isn't good for you and strong for something that is aligned or is good for you.
Yes, exactly. And so I was like, you need to test me for banana and avocado. And he did. And actually, like, you know, when he does the whole thing about like, okay, let me test you with the arm, and he'll put the banana or like avocado for me to hold it. It was like super weak. And he's like, oh my God, I think you might be allergic to banana and avocado. So for years, it literally took me like maybe like 4 years to realize the banana and avocado were the worst thing for my body. And actually I stopped eating them, and right away I was like, oh, it was supposed to. But anyways, I mean, a simple thing, right? That maybe you one day wake up and you're like, look, maybe these two things are like not good for me. And it was my inner self telling me, so you should look into this. And I'm glad I did, because I would literally eat like 3 bananas a day, 1 avocado, or 2 a day. I mean, I was killing myself slowly. But yeah, I think we should definitely pay attention in those little things, especially when it comes to something that might be very helpful for your body, whether it's like something that it's hurting you, as you know, if you're eating something, or as simple as like, oh, I shouldn't walk that way, maybe I should go this way, because God knows if there's somebody there that might hurt me, or not even that, but maybe there's a hole in the street and I might fall or something, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. There's so much that goes into your intuition. And so I think that's where a lot of people struggle is, let's say you might get a message to do something or not to do something.
Mhm.
And maybe logically it doesn't make any sense. And so it's like how, it's sometimes hard for our logical mind to go along with that. But I'm so glad you figured that out about diet. And I've had some of those things for myself too. And also I want to tell people that there's many different kinds of tests, medical tests. And I think different tests look at different kinds of reactions. And so when I was just before I even started doing this work and looking at intuition, all that, I knew I had some health issues and dietary problems and digestive problems. But I was like you, like trying to figure out, and I couldn't get answers. And I got allergy testing. And here's the interesting thing is I reacted really strongly to soy, which I didn't realize I had a reaction to, because you can't always tell when you eat something that your body's not liking it. Like, I just didn't know. And soy, I was a vegetarian for a long time. So soy is in a lot of vegetarian products. So I was eating it in like salad dressings and, meat substitutes and all kinds of stuff. And then even after I started eating meat again, it's still in a lot of products. But here's the interesting thing. I did not react to wheat or gluten in that kind of allergy testing. And so I continued to eat it. And this was before I was, taking psychic classes and everything. And I just really struggled still. And then I went to a nutritionist and she did muscle testing, just like what you're talking about. She's like, you're highly reactive to wheat. So I cut it out and I had massive health changes in a really positive way. I lost weight. I wasn't congested anymore. Crazy thing. I went back to my middle school shoe size. So in high school, I thought my feet grew. I went up like a shoe size or a shoe size and a half. And then once I eliminated wheat, I went back to my middle school shoe size. And what I realized was I was just really inflamed. I was just really swollen from eating something that I was badly reacted to. But here's the thing, my allergy test came back negative. That particular type, which was the skin prick test. And then fast forward, so a couple of years, I had eliminated wheat from my diet. And then I felt to get a food sensitivity test. Now, even though I wasn't eating it, I think it's still helpful to know what you're reacting to. So I got a food sensitivity test and I came in highly allergic and reactive to wheat. So one test showed a reaction and the other didn't. That one was the blood test. So I encourage everyone to, even if you get a test that says something's fine, if it doesn't sit right with you, pay attention to that. Different tests work in different ways. And the other thing, I too had one of those things that was like, that's weird, like turmeric, which is a super healthy food. I'm like highly reactive to turmeric, black pepper, which is another one that's in like everything, and cranberry. And like every year after Thanksgiving, I would feel ill. The only day that I would eat cranberry, So I think it's important to use your intuition. If something doesn't sit right, pay attention to that. And then also I think it's helpful to try different practitioners and different approaches until you get the answer that helps you.
Yeah, for sure. It happened the same to me with the testing. And especially when you go to do the allergy test, there's so many things that they could test for. And if you just go to the doctor and tell them, well, can you do a allergy test? They might just mark literally like 5 things, like 1, 2, 3, 4. There's like a million of them. And they usually kind of like mark the highest potential that you might be allergic to. But it's pretty much worthless because they're not marking everything.
Yeah. How many substances are there that we interact with on a daily basis? Like hundreds, right?
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of people might have a different diet from another person. And so, even if they keep marking the same one, it's like, well, you're marking mushrooms, but I never eat mushrooms in my life or something like that. Yeah, it's very important that if you're going to get a test, especially for allergy tests, you have to be super specific on what you're going to tell your physician to look for. Otherwise, they will just mark the kind of like top 10, which you might not even be consuming. So
absolutely. Yeah. So I think it's a process. Really pay attention to your body, your intuition. And even if you're getting someone telling you it's fine, if it doesn't feel fine, just keep investigating until you find answers, and maybe change to a different practitioner who's going to look and, dive deeper. Because when I was having all my health issues, I was so tired of having doctors tell me, oh, nothing's wrong. And I'm like, there's definitely something wrong. Like, I don't feel good.
yes, that's the number.
So don't just take that answer. Like, go until you find a practitioner who's going to be able to help you really get at the root of it. If you don't feel good, you don't feel good. Like, you don't need someone to tell you one way or the other how you feel. You know how you feel.
Oh yeah, definitely. Funny that you mentioned that, because one of my first internists, I kept telling him, I'm like, I'm just still having pains, and every time I eat, blah blah blah. And then he put me on this kind of like I forgot how it's called, but it's pretty much banana, rice, and something else. Oh, and applesauce.
Oh, is it that the anti-inflammatory diet or the cancer diet?
It's just this diet to kind of like ease on your stomach for a couple of days.
So you're eating one of the things you reacted to.
And I was eating banana, applesauce, and rice. So I kept telling him, I'm like, every time I eat, it's killing me. You're fine. And I was like, well, yes, just the same, right? Like, I'm not eating well. I'm not feeling well. Definitely, this is not helping. So I'm the boss here. So I'm gonna just fire you and hire someone else until I find the solution. I think people forget that they have the power within anything.
Yes.
Right. Whether is, their nutrition, their physician, whatever, you're the boss. You pay for them, just fire them, hire someone else that might be able to help you with whatever it is.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think in any area, but especially health, because so much of how we feel in our life has to do with our health. So it's so important in that area.
Yeah, especially I will say with the people that takes like antidepressants or anxiety pills or whatever it is that they give them. I mean, I've heard so many stories with their like, you know what, I know I was sad before, I had some sort of depression, but now it's worse. Now I want to kill myself. So if there's something that's not really helping you, well, there is medicine. And sometimes people too give that a lot of power to medicine. And it's like, well, yeah, medicine sometimes helps, but sometimes it doesn't. So do pay attention to how you're feeling with any medicine that you're actually taking.
Yeah, it's interesting that you brought up antidepressants, because when I was going through all these struggles where I was trying to figure out what was wrong, and I did find out from some of these doctors that I had some allergies. They didn't get the wheat one, but they got soy. It was help. There were some helpful things that I figured out. Right. But the first diagnosis I got was just, you're depressed, and they wanted to put me on the depression pill. And I was like, look, I don't feel good. I'm not in a good mental state, but I don't think that's the cause of everything. It's more like a symptom that I'm experiencing.
Right.
And I was reading the book by Dr. Oz called You on a Diet. And it's a great book if you like, Dr. Oz, and if you've ever struggled with weight. And I was at this point where I had never historically struggled with weight, but all of a sudden I was like, I had gained 50 pounds. No matter what I did, I couldn't lose the weight. If I restricted my calories or exercise, it just would not budge. And I was reading his book, and he said, if you have all these symptoms, and it was like weight gain, trouble sleeping, hair growth was one of the unpleasant ones that I had. And it was like, you might have, and it was breakouts, you might have polycystic ovary syndrome. I think we have an epidemic of this for women in our country. So I went to my OBGYN and I said, can you test me for this? And she just literally felt my ovaries, and she's like, yes, you have this. But because my symptoms were not as extreme as some people that have it, they didn't diagnose me with it. Like, I had weight gain, but not like as much as some have when they have this. And so it's just really important to listen and pay attention to that. And also I think, unfortunately, that depression is one of these kind of catch-all things where it's like, it's something they can do. They can prescribe an antidepressant. And I'm not saying that people aren't depressed, but there's frequently an underlying medical condition underneath that's a real problem. And if you just take the antidepressant and you don't at the same time also deal with whatever's happening underneath, then you're not going to get better.
Yeah, for sure. I think with depression and anxiety, those are symptoms, and it's not like a disease. And I think we should definitely start seeing those two as symptoms and not as a disease. It's not like, oh, I have a disease named depression. I mean, no, that's not how it works. Definitely, there's something else that's causing you to feel like that. And yes, look for help, look for something that might be aligned with you, whether it's medicine or therapy, or even like the food that you eat might cause you depression at times.
Absolutely. So top foods that contribute to both anxiety and depression. There's articles and studies about this. Are sugar, high glycemic foods, period, things that convert to sugar. So starches, wheat, dairy, alcohol, caffeine. These are all things that most people are consuming on a regular basis. Yeah. So, this idea, let food be thy medicine, I really feel like that's so important. And it's something that we have completely lost in our society as a general rule, that if you just shift your diet to be healthy for you, and it's not a one track diet for everyone, because you're allergic to avocado, I'm allergic to turmeric and some weird things that a lot of people think are really healthy. But when you figure out your food for you, what is really aligned for you, that can resolve so many issues. So it's really, really important, and I don't think it has enough focus for the importance that it has in terms of our body and our psychic and intuitive abilities. Because as I mentioned, your gut, your brain, your heart, all these things are greatly impacted by your diet and your health.
Right. Would you say that the healthier we are, the more we can tap into our intuition as of someone that's in compared with someone that might have all these health issues?
I think it makes it really a lot easier to us. I mean, we still have to make that conscious decision and kind of be aware of it, but absolutely, it's harder for you if you are unwell physically. And so when I started my podcast, Healing Powers Podcast, I specifically wanted to address the different aspects of this, because it was clear to me right away, I need to look at physical health. I need to look at emotional health. I need to look at spiritual health and psychic abilities. We can't just compartmentalize everything. It's all connected. And as I got more psychic and in tune, my physical health transformed. And I also got messages of oh, this is not okay for me to do or consume or eat. As an example, I definitely got the message to stop drinking. And that was something that is, so prevalent in our society. But as soon as I stopped drinking alcohol, my physical health improved drastically. My psychic abilities went up to another level. I manifested at another level. So it's important for all of us to pay attention and to look at it as a whole picture instead of these separate things that aren't connected.
Yeah, for sure. I think just as humans, I think we tend to separate things to make them easier. But, as a nutritionist, as a massage therapist, I can't just treat your back because it's just your back. It might actually be something else. We need to look into something else. It might be actually some of the muscles in the front of your body, or it might be your ankle, or it might be your knee, but it might, because it's all connected. It's not just one thing. Same thing as when you eating something, and
right.
It's the same with that. Let's look at our whole bodies, mind, body, and soul as a one thing and as a separate thing, because we'll work better when we're in optimal health within all the, everything, mind, body, and soul.
Absolutely. So there's the sort of biomechanical parts of the body. Yes, it's all connected. You can't just isolate just the back from, the other parts of the body. And then there's also the emotional aspect. So one of the things I realized is I have a lower back injury, and I have, periodically, I'll get back pain. And it's so striking how emotional it is for me, because there may be a slight thing I kind of picked up wrong or whatever, but it's always this energetic, emotional thing when I get right to it. And I remember there was one time where I was having like some pretty intense back pain, and I'd gone to several chiropractors and it just was not going away. And I was just like at my wit's end with it. Like, what do I do? This is a real problem. Like, it's causing me, like, it's hard to sleep. When you don't sleep, other bad things happen. I just, was very uncomfortable, in pain. And at the same time, I was having some boundary issues come up with a particular client. And it was fascinating because once I released this particular client, my back pain just completely went away. I didn't go to see another chiropractor. I didn't do anything. It was just literally like, I need to release this person. And then my back was fine. So it's really complex, and every person's reactions are going to be different. But when I hear people have back pain, I'm like, there's probably some kind of energetic, emotional boundary that their body is trying to tell them that they need to enforce. And the problem is we're just not taught to look at things like that, generally speaking. And also it's maybe harder as a practitioner to help someone unless you are like, a psychic or working in some unusual methods that aren't sort of the typical methods to really understand how these things are connected.
Right. Otherwise they'll just isolate it and be like, just put ice on your back.
Yeah. Or go get back surgery or whatever.
Right. Do you, what will you say to parents? And because I heard kids have their intuition higher than adults. What will you say to parents to just keep on them, support them as like, don't lose that intuition because we'll lose it as we grow older?
Yeah, I think it's really important. Kids, generally speaking, are closer to the other side. So as we get closer to the other side, or we're more recently on the other side, we're frequently more connected with our intuition, that soul aspect. So kids are often very tapped in and connected. I would just say for parents to help them honor whatever kids are experiencing, whatever their abilities are, not to deny it or ignore it, and also to tell them it's okay. I mean, one of my big struggles growing up was just feeling like no one else has this. I think the more that people talk about it, the easier it gets to understand it, and then also to get support. There's lots of teachers, I teach classes, there's books on this stuff. Just learn about it and just help your child to understand, first of all, that they're safe. And, what makes you different or unique is not a bad thing. I firmly believe that whatever our abilities are, like, we don't have extra parts and pieces. Like, everything that is in us is for a reason. And when we deny a part of ourselves, and that we're not only denying ourselves, but we're also denying a part of our power. It's like we're only running on, like, imagine a spaceship or a plane or something, and you're only running on partial engine, like you're not going to reach your kind of full capacity, capability, power if you're not accessing all the parts of you.
Right. Definitely. Is there some simple exercises that anyone can do just to tap a little bit more in their intuition?
So I think meditation is such a powerful tool. I know a lot of people talk about it, but there's many different kinds of meditation. I'm a fan of guided meditations. You can also just do, quiet music or nature sounds. But I think it all starts with receptivity. And we're so busy in our daily lives with activity, with work, with media, all the notifications we get on our phones and devices that we have. And the more that we can just be receptive, meaning receiving, at some point, the more it helps with anxiety. It helps literally, there's so many, anti-stress applications for meditation, but also it helps us be able to better listen to our intuition, to our angels and spirit guides. So I think having some kind of quiet, receptive time every day, whether that's through an active meditation session, whether that's through taking a walk or a swim or taking a bath, it doesn't have to be one way, but meditation is a wonderful tool because it's very accessible. And there's lots of wonderful apps and platforms that help you do that really easily. I like Insight Timer. I used that as a user before, and now I have several free meditations on there. So I think it's just a really lovely platform. So that's one that you can use.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, this has been great. Do you have anything else that you can share with us about intuition?
Gosh, I just really encourage everyone to connect in with it. And I believe that it's like a muscle, that the more you do it, the easier it gets. Like, at first it might feel a little hard, like, to understand what your intuition is telling you, or to listen to it and have the faith and trust that the message that you're getting is real, that you can trust it, but just do it a little bit over time. And then the more you do it, the more you get to trust it and the easier it gets. So, when I started out, I was getting messages to do things and I was like, this sounds crazy. And now when I get a message, I'm like, okay, I just, even if it sounds crazy to me, through my analytical mind, I know and understand that, things go well when I listen and they don't go as well when I don't listen. So it's just important to listen. So if you don't know how to do that, take a class, read a book, there's just so many resources out there. Listen to my podcast, Healing Powers Podcast. Just really get out there, connect with others that are used to operating this way, because I think it's about learning how to do it for yourself and also feeling like you're within a community where that's okay. That was one of my biggest things when I had my sort of coming out of the psychic closet, was I just didn't really have people in my life at that point that I could talk about this stuff comfortably with. So when you connect with others that do this, it really helps you to feel like, oh, this is safe. I can explore this. Others are like this. So just exploring, connecting with people. And definitely, if you haven't done it, ask your angels and spirit guides for help. Archangel Michael is a wonderful angel for that specifically. And then if you are having any health issues, Archangel Raphael is the angel for health and wellness. And he's also really funny and hilarious. So I definitely recommend calling on him for that. And my Insight Timer profile is Laura Powers 44, so 44 the digits. And I have an Archangel Michael meditation, Archangel Raphael. So there's a lot of that stuff for free out there as well.
That is awesome. There is a lot of tools out there that are for free. So if anyone is looking into tap into their intuitions, they can definitely go to Google and look it up and get some good free stuff that they can do, right? Thank you for being with us today. This was awesome. If you guys want to find out more about Laura, where can they find you?
So my website for the psychic kind of spiritual work is healingpowers.net. You can also find me at Twitter at that Laura Powers, Instagram at Laura Powers 44. And then I'm also on Facebook at Healing Powers. And then you can also email me at bookings, that's with an S, at laurapowers.net. And I do love to hear from people on social media. So definitely reach out. Feel free to say hello.
Yes, please do so. And I will also put all her information on the show notes. So you didn't have time to write all that down, I will put it there for you. Thank you for listening today. If you need to know more about me or my podcast, Leap of Health, you can find me at alexbalgood.com, or that's my website, or Alex Balgood on Facebook and Instagram. Thank you, everybody, for listening today.